Welcome back, and today we're covering a topic that I find really interesting, but also kinda depressing. This is Hazard Zone, a mode that was built up towards launch of Battlefield 2042, kinda flopped, and then unfortunately had its support dropped. We're going to take a deep dive into this mode, see what works, see what doesn't, and see overall why it failed and why support was cut. Now you might be thinking, well, Battlefield just can't do Battle Royales right. I mean, Firestorm failed, Hazard Zone has failed here, and the next attempt probably will as well, but I don't think it's that simple. There's a lot of moving parts in Hazard Zone, and a lot of things do work. I'm a big fan of this mode, I think it's fun, but it's got a lot of glaring flaws that stop it from becoming great. So let's jump right in. First of all, what even is Hazard Zone? Well, it's not a traditional Battle Royale because you don't have to kill everyone to win, you've just got to get out. Much like Escape from Tarkov, you go into an area, you get loot, and you get out. Except you don't grab random items and guns, you grab data drives, and once you get out and escape on one of two condors throughout the match, you then get money and credits to spend on your next trip into Hazard Zone, and so on and so forth. You can play this mode in the standard squads of 4 people in 2042, and each specialist can only be selected one time per squad, and the class system does not apply in terms of gadgets, so you can take whatever you want. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but let's talk about the first thing that you see with Hazard Zone, and that ties into the questionnaire I put out a couple of days ago, asking people's opinion on the mode. While some people said they liked it or disliked it, the majority of players, who aren't here for VR content, that's coming tomorrow by the way, so stay tuned, said that they had never even tried it. It was almost 50%, if I remember right, said they had never even touched Hazard Zone, and maybe it's because of its place in the menu. It's at the very bottom, it doesn't really stand out too much, and new players might not even want to touch it. Most of the people I run into in Hazard Zone now, and especially before 2042 went free on PS Plus last month, were high levels. Definitely in the S ranks all of the time, and consistently seeing the same squads again and again. And I do think its place in the menu and its understated nature in the menu don't help it to attract new players. There's no mention of it in the tutorial of 2042 either, and no illusion of what it even is, to indicate whether or not a new player would even want to try it out. Then there's the fact that it's a paid part of 2042. This has been alleviated by some free weekends, and obviously the PS Plus scheme with PlayStation and Game Pass with Xbox. But before that and after that, you're going to have to pay for 2042 to access this Battle Royale section of the game. A completely separate mode to the standard and classic Conquest that a lot of people just won't want to try, and even if they are interested in the mode on its own, they'll have to pay for the overall package of 2042 to play it. Now these factors definitely contribute to the game itself not being popular at launch, and maybe why it was dropped later on and didn't have a high retention or player count. But let's talk about the actual gameplay elements and what works and what doesn't, starting with what I mentioned earlier, the specialist integration. Limited to 1 per team, and this makes them all the more important. This is something Hazard Zone gets right, and they've gotten right in previous events as well, is that in smaller modes, 1 specialist per team highlights their importance and where they should be utilised. You can take a Casper and use his eyes in the sky to locate other squads. You can use Dozer to defend final extraction, or to take down enemies with a push. You can use Sundance or McKay to do high mobility flanks against enemies, or you can use Falk to heal up your team and revive them that much quicker. Each specialist feels more important when there aren't 128 of them running around on the battlefield. That's something the mode does right, and allowing them to take whatever gadgets they want do make them a little less readable than in Conquest, but I do think it works in allowing player agency in a mode where it's needed. The actual maps you play on are all of the 2042 maps, excluding every single seasonal map past exposure. That means that Spearhead, Stranded, and Flashpoint are not supported in Hazard Zone. I think that's completely fine, they're very small and wouldn't really fit the mode that well. Some maps like Exposure I feel flow pretty well. Orbital 2 I think works well with Hazard Zone, but it does start to really show its flaws in maps like Hourglass where there just is no cover, and teams can easily pick you off with sniper rifles. If you have any problems with the main maps on 2042 and Conquest, they're probably going to be carried over to Hazard Zone or accentuated tenfold. Especially running long distances, because you have theoretically 1 life, and we'll get onto that in a bit as well, you really feel the distance of running all the way across the map, and if you get to a certain place you wanted to get to and it takes you ages like on Hourglass and then you get shot, you feel it all the more, and it's even more frustrating. More often than not, these maps will also have natural disasters going on all the way through them, and I personally really like this. It adds to the atmosphere, it makes matches more hectic, and you can even use tornadoes to launch yourself across the map and get to extraction in a last-ditch effort, or use them to throw yourself towards a squad and take them by surprise. I know some people don't like the frequency of these though, and I do understand that as well. So the maps are a little hit and miss. But what about the money system? The core system that the mode is based on, of getting in and getting out and getting credits for it. Well, unfortunately that is pretty flawed as well. So you only get money for getting data drives out and for killing enemies. And if you get out alive, you get your insurance back on your loadout, so you get the money you spent on it back in your inventory. This in theory is alright, but it's a very closed system, and to be honest, after just a couple of games, you'll be able to afford anything you want. It really doesn't take long at all to get enough money to afford any loadout combination that you could possibly desire, and that's kind of where the gameplay loop ends for some people. They feel like they've got enough to buy whatever they need and whatever they want, and there's no point in playing because it doesn't go any further than that. And overall, it just isn't that satisfying. If you're looking for an in-depth money and selling system like Tarkov, it's not going to be found here. Also, there seems to be a bit of a big missed opportunity by not having this money system link into the main game in any way, shape or form. Maybe you could spend these credits to unlock vault weapons, or unlock weapons or specialists from previous seasons, and allow that as an alternative method to unlock those gadgets, specialists and weapons from seasons past instead of their usual unlock requirements. Maybe you could play in Hazard Zone and build up credits, and instead of using them in Hazard Zone, use them to unlock these things. That would have been a really neat idea, or something like that. Just give them a different purpose other than just being a currency for the mode in such a closed system that doesn't feel rewarding to the player. I'm sitting on around 50,000 right now, and that's more money than I have anything to do with. I could go into Hazard Zone and die tens of times without getting out and without killing anyone and without getting any monetary reward at the end, and I would probably still have a bit of money left over, to put it in perspective of how scuffed it really is. And with just a few improvements, it could be so much better and more rewarding and keep people coming back. Now, there is also a very big fundamental gameplay problem I want to touch on in the form of the second chance and redeploy system in Hazard Zone. How this works is if you die before the first extraction takes off, you get a second chance. Your entire squad comes back and is dropped in any random point on the map. We'll tackle this first, and theoretically, this kind of makes sense. You can die very unfairly and quickly, either by bots or players, if you're caught out in the open or just have bad luck, so it's nice to give players a chance to come back. Unfortunately, the size of the maps in 2042 make it so that if you redeploy, you can kind of get halfway across the map from anywhere, meaning that you can wipe a squad, and in other battle royales you think, okay, unless they say win the gulag, or if there is no gulag system, they're dead. You're never going to see them again. They can't come back and kill you. But in 2042, before first extraction, they can. Because you wipe them, they get second chance, they redeploy, and they can pretty much get halfway across the map, or all the way across the map, land by you and shoot you in the back, just like you did to them. It makes wiping squads, and even getting that nice squad wipe notification, less rewarding because you know they can just come straight back. It's a system that really doesn't make sense for this type of mode, and makes it so that dying is also less consequential. You can throw yourself at a squad with the knowledge that, oh well, I can just come back, find them again in about 15 seconds time when second chance is done, and do it all over again. Following on from this, the redeploy system accentuates this by miles. Essentially how this works is if a squad member dies, you can use a redeploy and call them back in. One redeploy can be used to call in every squad member if all of them but one are dead, or just one. One of these redeploys will cover multiple people. And you can stack these, I'm pretty sure, indefinitely. Now the way you find these the way you get them is by finding them around the game world, and that wouldn't be so bad, but you can also buy them at the start of the round as an additional upgrade perk in the starting screen. Granted, they do cost money, but they're not that expensive compared to, say, triple throwable or triple ammo. That means that you could start the game with 4 potential redeploys. So say if everyone on your team, except for one person, got wiped 4 times, you could bring them back. This once again makes killing people feel very inconsequential, and I wish there was a cap on maybe the amount of redeploys, or just some sort of measure to be put in to stop this loop of killing people and then seeing them come drop back in, and then killing them again and again and again. Now there are ways to tell that players are coming in. There is an audio cue of a helicopter flying over when players are called in on top of you, and if you listen out for that, you can look up and take them out pretty easily.
Yeah, I just heard a helicopter. I think they might have pulled something in. Yep, helicopter right on top of us, there it is.
However, in no place in the tutorial or menus are you told this, so you've got to either watch videos like this to find out, or try and figure it out for yourself. Because that's a really good indicator of seeing whether or not people are being redeployed, but in no place does the game tell you that. But if you do play Hazard Zone and didn't know that, that's just one to look out for. But say you missed that sound of the helicopter flying past, and don't know that people are redeploying on you. Is that your last chance? Are they going to drop on your head unsuspectedly? Well, probably, because 2042's parachute audio is not the most forgiving. There is audio of the parachute being pulled, but if they do that high up, you're screwed, because there's basically no ambient parachute sound. So if somebody's parachuting right above me, they're essentially silent until they hit the floor, and while they're silent, they can shoot me easily while I'm unawares. That is a bit of a big problem, and all of these redeploy issues combine to make it a really unenjoyable experience in the late game, where squads are constantly redeploying their teammates, and there's an endless game of parachuting going on until final extraction. Now the game is also populated by bots and bot tanks, and to be honest, I'm fine with these. They work alright, they fill their role of guarding data drives and shooting players, they can beam you from 700 miles away just like insurgency bots can, and like insurgency bots, they love Molotovs. But they're alright, they serve their purpose. Tanks guard more data drives than normal bots, and I like that. But yeah, leave these in. They fit the mode, they make it a bit more thematic, and they aren't a problem to most cohesive squads. Penultimately, let's talk about extraction itself, getting on to the aircraft and escaping from Hazard Zone. Now, most of the time this works fine, but sometimes either the game will decide that you've failed your mission even though you've extracted properly, or the aircraft will break and not take off for ages and allow people to attach explosives to the side of it, which then go off and kill your entire squad inside, thus failing you properly. These are really frustrating issues, and to be honest, they're happening less and less as of recently, but I think that might be a coincidence, but they definitely can happen. And this also links into the fact that trophies don't really track properly for extraction. I've extracted over 25 times and still haven't got the PlayStation achievement for extracting that number of times in Hazard Zone. I don't know what's blocking it from tracking, but if any of the DICE devs are watching this, please look into this. It's one of the only trophies I have left on the game and I just can't get it. Other members of my squad who I play with have got this trophy, and essentially all of the games I've played with them, and I've played more without them as well, and I've extracted more times. So not quite sure what's going on with that one, but I've had a lot of reports from other people as well saying they can't get this trophy too, so it's worth being looked into. So there we have it. This has been a bit more of a negative video than usual, and I hate being negative, but this is one that I wanted to talk about for ages. I've touched on it a little bit before, but Hazard Zone could be so much fun and have so much potential as an extraction mode, but it just doesn't have the love poured into it, and it needed more time in the oven for sure, with more meaningful systems and core gameplay loops. A Battlefield Extraction Royale or Battle Royale could work really well, and this one almost does. I come back to it very frequently with my squad and play it quite a lot, but it just needs that little extra push, and unfortunately it's never gonna get it because support was dropped last year for the mode. Technically we did get a couple of fine-tuning updates after that, but I think they were already things implemented into different builds of the game, and the active development did stop when they said it did. Which sucks, because this could be really solid if it was patched up properly. So if any DICE devs are watching this, please consider tweaking this mode a little bit, adding some little things in here and there, because it really needs it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy this video, let me know. Consider subscribing and liking, because it's free and it really helps me out. If you've played Hazard Zone, let me know if you like it in the comments below, or whether you hate it, feel free to let me know. And if you want to come and talk to me or anybody else that does love this game, head over to the No Salt Discord. We're talking about Battlefield all the time and getting ready for the next event, so I hope to see you there. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.